Welcome to another episode of Ying Cooks the Internet. My name is Chris Ying, and I feel poopy. I don't ever want to lie to you all. That's not my thing. And I feel a little rough around the edges today. I went to dinner with a friend of mine last night. Unbeknownst to us when we made this reservation, it was some kind of sake tasting dinner. We tasted a lot of sakes. I'm gonna be upbeat. I'm gonna be happy to be making this dish today with you all, which in fact is appropriate, because it is a dish that brings me great comfort. And this being Ying Cooks the Internet, it has an internet provenance. Although this is really more like Ying Cooks for the Internet than in Ying Cooks the Internet, because over on the Majordomo Media Discord server, there's a home cooking channel, home cooking talk channel, and our user Fisheries Scientist, I noticed the other day, said, has Chris Ying ever posted his dad's Macao curry stew recipe? Every time I hear about it, I want to try it so bad. I've talked about this dish a lot. Anytime somebody asks me, what's my death row meal? I'm like, what did I do? But I cite this as my sort of like comfort dish. This is a dish that my dad would make when I was a kid. This recipe comes from a Chinese cookbook written by a Taiwanese woman, where my mom grew up in Taiwan. So this is a dish written by a Taiwanese person for a Macanese dish from Macao that is named after the Portuguese colonizers. So it is labor intensive. There's a lot going on here, and I seldom make it because of all of the labor and frying that goes into this dish. But because you on the internet, the internet asked for it, I'm gonna make my dad's comforting Macao style Macanese, what the hell is this thing called? Macanese chicken curry? This is the version I fell in love with. And basically what we're gonna do today is fry everything, make a roux, pour in a bunch of coconut milk, bake it, and then gobble it all up. It's hopefully gonna make me feel better, because I feel bad. I feel really bad. There's a lot of steps, so I'm gonna get into it right now. So first things first, we marinate this chicken. So I'm using whole skin-on chicken thighs. You can do whatever. You don't have to use skin-on, bone-in chicken thighs, but this is just how what we had when I was growing up. Here's the thing, though. Generally speaking, these are some, I don't know, like body shame. That's a thunder thigh right there. That was a big old thigh. Generally, we would chop these up into smaller pieces. And normally I would do that with a cleaver, but I left it at home because, as I said earlier, I feel bad today, and I didn't remember to bring anything. I'm still gonna try to hack this up. You guys ready? Oh man, didn't work that well. You gotta go confidently. I just don't want them to be like huge, unbraisable sized thighs. Usually my dad actually makes a much bigger portion than I'm gonna make today too. I'm basing all this on the roasting pan I found in the pantry, which is a little smaller than mine at home, so I'm gonna make this all a smaller portion. You can, like I said, I was saying you don't have to use bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. You can use whatever you want. I actually think that skin-on chicken is a little bit intense for some people, because it's just like a little, no, it gets like, people like chicken skin that is roasted or fried. It's like crispy or brown and thin, and this becomes sort of melty, fatty, gelatinous when it gets braised in the coconut, which I love, but like I said, it can sketch out some people. I'm trying to decide if I want to do one more chicken thigh or if that's enough. Do you guys have any opinion? No, you gotta be like, one more thigh, one more thigh. Okay, let's do one more thigh. One more thigh. You asked for it. You got it. One more thigh. Wow! I'm like I said, so this recipe comes from a Chinese cookbook, as in Chinese, and my Chinese is not good enough to interpret it, so I'm mostly going off of memory here, and I'm gonna wing this a little bit. So this gets marinated in a little bit of Shaoxing wine. There are many, 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 many different curries. In India, it has a whole different meaning. There's Thai curry, Japanese curry, tons and tons of curries. And each, like I'm a real curry boy, as they say on the message boards. I'm a curry boy, and the distinguishing flavor for me with this curry, in addition to it being a super coconutty thing, are a couple of flavors. I think one is there's a pretty pronounced amount of ginger in this curry, and Shaoxing wine is also sort of a distinctive flavor. It's not a bunch of Shaoxing wine, but the fact that it's in there makes it stand out for me. It's also like pretty sweet because of the coconut milk. This is from my house. It's like an old ass jar of curry powder. There's nothing in particular about this other than that it's like the brand that my dad used. It's pretty spicy, and it says Madras curry powder. It's also in French, and I think in phonetic Vietnamese, maybe? No, I don't know. I don't know where this is from. Maybe it has like the vibe of a Vietnamese product to me, but if you know, make sure you blow up the comment section. But this is the one, this is the flavor of this dish to me, is this particular curry powder. Doesn't have to be yours, but that's the one I like. It's turmeric-y, I think. Yeah, lots of turmeric, coriander, cumin, cinnamon, clove, bay leaf, allspice. The first ingredient is curry. So you know you're getting the good stuff when the first ingredient, this is almost 90% curry. A little MSG, which my dad used to use all the time, and then he would proudly say things like, "What are all these people talking about MSG? I never use MSG," because his was like in a little bottle of Accent is the brand, and my mom was like, "What do you think is in that little jar?" And he's just like, "Good flavors." It's like, yeah, MSG, bro. I don't call my dad bro. A little curry, not curry, what's this called? Cornstarch. And that's some salt. And then I'm just gonna give this a real rub down. You want to really work the glutes when you're doing this. Make sure you get in there. Those hammies can be tight. Let the chicken guide you, you know what I mean? Like, you tell me what's feeling good, what's not feeling too good, you know? So what I'm doing now, I'm gonna slice these, what are these called? Potatoes? And then they're gonna get twice fried. So I'm gonna leave them pretty large, because one thing that tends to happen to me when I'm making this dish, they end up getting braised for a while, and while delicious, they also will fall apart in the braise if I cut them too small. So I'm gonna try to keep them relatively big. Also being mindful of how big my pan is. So they're gonna get fried not once, but twice. I don't have a thermometer, so I don't know how hot this oil is, but I'm gonna use a wooden stick, which I learned from Hetty McKinnon. Potatoes will get twice fried, the chicken will get fried, and then I'm going to make a roux. All right, let's fry some taters. Now that the oil is hot, I think. Not that hot, it's hot enough. So this is just vegetable oil. Being a curry boy is not about liking exotic curry. It's not like being like an indie rock kid. Like, what's the obscure curry you've never heard of? I've heard them, but I still like this is my favorite curry. Papa's curry. My Papa's curry. I was going for like an American Tail Fievel vibe. Is it working? Papa. Fievel. Papa. I'm not just saying this because the oil wasn't that hot, but you do fry, like when you do a double fry on potatoes, you do generally want to go a lower temp and then a higher temp to crisp them up. That's not really what we're really trying to get here. What I'm looking for when I fry this twice is for there to be kind of like a dried exterior to the potato. where it's like a leathery skin, like somebody who was like addicted to tanning. Kind of like this. You see this? Where it's like a little bit blistery, it's like it feels dry to the touch, in fact, is sort of what I'm looking for. So I'm actually gonna pull these now first. Actually, the oil's getting a little hot. You can see it's starting to brown before it actually does what I want. I'm not trying to brown these guys necessarily. You might make this curry, you might not make this curry. You might at the end of the day not like it or whatever, but so much of this dish is tied to very specific idiosyncrasies that are hard to explain. You know, like I remember coming in the kitchen when my dad was making this, and these potatoes, once they're twice fried and had actually been fried in the oil after the chicken, were just like the most tasty little sneaky treat. They're just kind of like curry infused, crunchy little potatoes, and I would just kind of cruise by and boop, 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 boop. The other thing I will say about this curry dish is that over the years, and I know that Papa is watching this, but Papa has gotten like smarter, wiser, a little bit lazier about this dish, where I'm just like, Dad, he's like, oh, I made pokokai tonight. And I was like, oh, awesome, yes, thank you. I'm home for my special chicken. And I'll eat it and be like, you know, something not quite right about this. And he's like, oh, I skipped all the frying part. I'm just like, dude, what? And he's just been like cutting corners here and there, which I totally understand, because this dish is, I think pokokai translates into pain in the ass chicken. It is, what a pain in the ass. So I feel you, Dad. I'm gonna let these chill for a second while I fry the chicken, actually. Ordinarily, you can let this marinate for as long as you want, but we don't have all that time. This, I think I'm only gonna fry one time. I just wanna render some of the skin, get some nice little, I don't have to justify the frying to you. You know why the frying's happening. Well, what do you want from me? You know why you gotta fry the chicken? Because it tastes good. So earlier I talked about how the skin gets sort of, I'm trying to find the word, gelatinous is so unattractive. It's so overused, but it's like unctuous. No, people say things are like impossibly crispy. Unctuous, little mounds of moist meat. It becomes fatty. All that effort to come up with fatty. But you know what I mean? It's like, it has that rich texture, rich melt in your mouth texture of pork fat. And a lot of that has to do with first rendering. You don't want it to be gross. So I think frying it actually renders off a bunch of that fat so that you're just getting braised chicken skin. I'm feeling better already. I feel like I started at a 2. I'm at an emotional 3.5 right now. I'm not trying to cook this chicken all the way, and I'm bored of frying it. So I'm gonna take a page out of my dad's playbook and be like, we're done. That's as far as I'm gonna fry you. A little color, a little rendering, and now I'm gonna let these potatoes go back in too and get another little fry guy. We're almost done with the boring part of this. Which is all the frying. These potatoes are where I want them, more or less. All right, let them go for a little bit. Shallots, I'm just gonna do these in little chunks. I'm not gonna make them fine or anything. This is, again, nothing other than personal memories of what I would get from my dad's version of this. It's just kind of like bigger chunks of things. And then the other big feature here is onion. I'm gonna be done with these potatoes. See, there's that dry, leathery skin look that I'm talking about. Dry skin. My dad never did this because we didn't have it on hand, but the recipe, as it were, calls for pork fat to fry in, which I think is pretty sick. And sick as in like, cool sick. He would probably just use some of that fryer oil, which makes all the sense in the world. You can do this with whatever, you just need a lot of fat to make a roux. You could use butter, oil, coconut oil. I'm just gonna render some of that pork fat, melt some of that pork fat in with onions, shallots. Let that all sweat for a second. A little salt. I think there's one layer of onion I should have peeled off. You know how like onions sometimes have that tricky layer where you're like, I'm gonna leave this on because I think it's just onion, but onions have had a little time to sweat in pork fat. Sounds fun, right? I'm gonna do garlic and ginger, which I already sliced up. And like I said earlier, ginger, big part of this. In goes flour, a little flour. So this is kind of an unusual thing. I've never made another curry thickened quite exactly like this. In case it wasn't already apparent. One of the least healthy things a human can eat, this dish. It's just like, hey, what's like a pretty not healthy thing to eat? Fried chicken and french fries. Oh yeah, that's pretty unhealthy, it's true. What if we bathed them in coconut milk? Oh yeah, that does sound pretty, man, that's a special time treat. I don't know how much flour I put in there. Hopefully enough. Obviously I don't think so because I put it more. And then curry powder. This is like not even really a roux. It kind of is a roux. You don't really just like let a roux be this chunky and do it with all the onions and stuff in there. This is like a little weird technique. But now we're just gonna add our coconut milk. Okay, is this cream? Coconut milk? Where are you? There you are. I'm gonna say 2 jars, 2 cans. That's why they call me Toucan Chris. That has no salt. A little soy sauce. And then this weird little thing, a little ketchup. And salt. Insanely rich. Really rich. It's spicy. That curry powder is pretty spicy. I think that when I've looked up this Macanese curry, everything always talks about it as like a mild, it's so not mild, curry. But I think that just comes down to personal preference. I think I put too much flour in here. It's so thick. All right, this is done. I'm gonna stop futzing with it. It's gonna be thick. It's gonna be thick. It's gonna be thick. And if we can rewind the tape to me saying, I wonder if there's enough flour, and then adding more flour unnecessarily. I don't know how much flour I put in there, hopefully enough. Obviously I don't think so because I put it more. We'll all know exactly why it's too thick. Pull this dirty oil diaper out. Get rid of that. Distribute the potatoes and chicken properly. Let's do skin side up on some, skin side down on some. See what happens. So I eyeballed this whole thing and I think I got the proportions pretty on point. I had a friend tell me recently that their roommate was perturbed by the fact that I had put an iPad on this cutting board in terms of like germiness and just sort of like food safety, which I get. I won't put my iPad on there. I get it. But if you're watching and you also just saw me lick that spoon that went in with that partially cooked chicken, I'm sure you're also freaking out. And that was dangerous. All right, into the oven for an undisclosed amount of time. We'll bake this. The internet will have been cooked. It's been about 1 human hour. I took the lid off. The lid. It's not a lid. What am I, crazy? I took the foil off and I cranked up the heat to a little broil for the last little bit. just to see if I can get some last minute color on there. This is the other part of this curry that I forgot to mention. This curry sure is oily, which I'm gonna drain off a good amount. Not all of it, because that's the good stuff. That's fat is flavor, fat is flavor, fat is flavor. But that's gonna sketch out a lot of people, I think, how much oil is on there. So let me get some off once I find my spoon. You know what's crazy? If I end up making this curry for my kids and they end up liking it, they'll be like, that's Dad's curry. And I was thinking, I'm the daddy now. I'm the daddy now. That's not the first time I realized I'm a father. I've been aware of that for a while. You know, I keep on calling this my dad's curry because he made it. Obviously, he's cooking from a recipe. I feel like it'll always be his. I'm pretty sure if I called him right now, I was like, Dad, look, I made your curry. He'd be like, okay, looks good, son. Okay. This is chicken. You want me to call my mom? Hi, Mom.
Yeah, what is he doing? Whoa, what? Did you make it already?
Looks pretty good, huh? How's it look?
It doesn't look thick enough. That's it.
Okay, I'll call you later, Mom. I'll call you later. So it was in there for an hour. You can actually go even longer, and according to my mom, it could be thicker too. I've never eaten this little curry. I've never eaten curry in any quantity that was less than a metric poop ton of curry. It's so hot. Man, we started this episode, I was feeling low, I was hungover as hell. Something about just frying potatoes forever and then braising them in more fat. There's something, I can't put my finger on what makes these potatoes so delicious, other than cooking them twice in fat and then baking them in fat. That makes them so creamy and rich and delicious. When you really think about it, there's something sick and twisted and sexy and alluring about thickening coconut milk with a roux made with pork fat. This was a dish that the internet asked me for specifically. This was a request line, and I was more than happy to oblige this one because honestly, any excuse to get to make this dish, I will do it. I love it. Jokes aside, my mood is legitimately improved eating this dish. I think I'll, even if my doctor says it'll kill me, which it probably will, I will never stop eating this dish. I will eat this for the rest of my life in whatever quantity I'm allowed. It's one of the most special things in the world to me. So I'm glad I got to share it with you. I think you should make it. The frying is a total pain in the ass. There's another reason I like to have it at my parents' house because they have to clean up. We have to clean up here, but this is an incredibly delicious dish. Hey, if you're enjoying this show we're making, why don't you help me out by letting us know things that you want to see me cook, whether it's some ridiculous internet meme that can't possibly be delicious and you don't want to try out, but you want to see me experiment with, or a recipe that has been circulating via, hey, do people still do like forwarded emails, chain letters? Oh, we should start a chain letter again. Forward this video to 7 friends right now, or you'll have 100 years of bad luck and your cat will lose all its fur. Hit us up in the comments section on social media, on the Majordomo Media Discord, where this recipe source came from. And make sure you please like and subscribe to our channel. It really does mean everything. This has been Ying Cooks the Internet. I'll talk to you soon.